So welcome to Be Smarter Than the Smartphone. I know that Ladrina had graced you with some frightening things that phones do that are left behind, and I intend to scare you even more if possible. And the reason I like to scare you is I want people to be aware of everything we do on all these devices. And I know that with my screen it's kind of hard to see, but I have devices everywhere, all over my office. As far as my path into cyber, I was definitely not groomed by my parents to grow up to do anything related to being a nerd, as everyone loves to call me now. And I joke about my looks. I include my 3rd grade photo in a lot of my lab data because it's absolutely hideous. So if you saw that, you would presume I would end up where I am today. I graduated from West Virginia University with a forensic science degree. What this means is I actually did CSI before CSI was a thing. I was one of the first 4 in the United States to have a degree. I had 0 computer skills. And when I say 0, I mean absolutely none. I could check my AOL email. I could use an Excel spreadsheet. That is honestly at best what I could do. I could barely save my resume onto a floppy disk. I'm not kidding. It was that bad. And then I joined the Air Force when I was a freshman in college because I needed tuition money. And that was pre 9/11. So obviously September 11th was a big reality check for me because I was in the military and I did get deployed. But in 2002, I was on the right plane, and that's not supposed to be placed. I was on the right plane at the right time. I was on the back of a C-130 flying in for my drill weekend in West Virginia. And the person's term is called a load master. And he came to the back of the plane and he said, "Are you the forensic girl?" And I said, "I actually am." And he said, "Do you think you can do computer forensics?" And I was like, oof. Honestly, at that point, I knew what my dad wanted me to say, which was, I can do anything if it's a real job. So I said yes, and I got an interview, and the rest is history. So honestly, I credit a lot of how I got from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen to a lot of great mentors, to me wanting to continue to chase the knowledge and being on that right plane at the right time. Because without that, I would not have met my first boss in 2002, who really taught me what digital forensics means and why it's important and why there isn't a magic button that you just press to get answers. And it really inspired me to just drive my career forward from there. To be honest, I really wanted to do bloodstain pattern analysis, which you can see on the left-hand side. Sadly, these pictures are not of me, which I assume you can tell based on the picture on the right. But I wanted to do that. It was exciting to me. And then I jumped right into a career field that I had no idea how much I would love. So if you like to learn new things, if you are always curious, and if you are possibly addicted to these mobile devices, which I know many people are, this could be a great career field for you. As far as phones and tablets, I'm not kidding when I tell you in 2009, I took a position doing mobile device forensics specifically. So I was in charge of running an entire mobile device lab. Now this is before all of these fancy iPhones. These are, think about the flip phone days. I'm sure some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. And you're thinking, wait, there wasn't a touch screen? You actually had to press buttons? My son found one of these old flip phones that I had, and he was amazed by it. The old BlackBerry still blows his mind. But in reality, it opened up a whole new world of opportunity for me. I love smartphones. Now, I love the forensic aspect of it. I try not to be addicted to it, which this slide is showing you just how addicted people are. We barely look up from our phones. It's sad when you see a group of teenagers sitting around and everyone's just on their phone texting the person that's sitting next to them. But I'm guilty of this. I have a fire pit, and in the evening, my friends will make fun of my husband and I, prior to COVID, when they could see us, saying, "You're sitting there side by side on your phone." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm watching TikTok. This is amazing. I need to be aware of all these new apps and all the ins and outs because of my job." So I use that excuse. But in reality, we hand these over to our children. We hand them everywhere. They are the most personal device you own. Think about your parents. I hope, and I'm not giving parenting advice here because I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. So if anyone wants to give me some parenting advice, I'll take it. But I can tell you right now, as a parent, I will not let my child take their phone into their room when they're old enough to have them, because we all need time to disconnect. We really, really do. And the more that we are always tied to these, the harder it is to control your digital fingerprint. So I want to challenge you with a few things during my talk. One, I want you to think of it forensically, obviously, because I want to teach you how to do some forensics. And there's a homework assignment at the end with a lab if you want to try to do forensics on your own with questions and answers. I'm also going to walk you through how to do it, because I assume for most of you this is new. So if you're curious and you want to see what data on an iPhone looks like, I'm going to give you access to free methods to do that. But what I also want to challenge you is think about what you put on your phone. Think about what you want to do in the future. Think about what could happen if your phone fell into the wrong hands. What is mobile forensics? I want you to think of your phone or your tablet as a crime scene. And this crime scene can be any crime. It can be something hacking related. It can be something missing persons related. And we are going to enter that crime to decipher the truth. Now, one of the hardest things we have in this career field is not letting your bias get involved. So we really just want to go into the device and say what really happened. Now you can see here 2 screenshots. I did work this case. I was assisting with it. There was a missing woman in Connecticut, and we used health data, which some people don't think about this, but think about your watches, your phone. It always knows where you are, what you're doing, what the temperature is. So all of these things can help you piece the truth together. It's everything from looking at messages, locations, pictures, and I know you've already had some talks on locations and pictures and your phone's not forgetting. And I'm not sure if Jason Jordan went or not yet, but his talk is going to be amazing at just making you aware of how much these devices really know about you. If you try to do anti-forensics, which means covering up data or covering your footprints, we can recover that. And that's actually going to be a part of the bonus homework if you're interested in giving it a shot. So something I'm always asked, other than what do you do, Heather? We don't really understand. People think cyber, they think forensics. People really don't understand at all. And then they always say, wow, your job must be easy. People put everything on a phone. That actually makes it really complicated. Think about how much data is on these devices. I personally have an Apple Watch, I have an iPhone, I have a test Android, and I have an iPad. So right there, that's 4 different devices. Now you have to consider the size of all of these. Consider all the third-party applications that I use. Consider cloud. This is where it's mind-blowing when you think about how much is out there. So not only is that difficult, but what are you going to do if you get my device and it's locked? How are you going to get into it? I've worked devices from war zones that have been blown up. I've worked devices recovered from the ocean, thrown in trunks with bullet holes in them. People even taking screwdrivers to the little charging ports because they know what we do with these devices. I actually worked a phone where someone ate. Yes, they actually swallowed their little SD card. So if someone is swallowing a little, I just threw that one across my desk. If someone is swallowing a little SD card, something teensy tiny like this, you know there's good evidence on that. Why else would they eat it? So I've worked some really gross things, but I worked some really amazing things. I'm sure encryption is a word that will pop up a lot this week. Hacking into passcodes, cracking passcodes, like was just discussed. Encryption does make things difficult, but not impossible. Why it's not impossible? The encryption keys are often stored locally. So depending on your level of extraction, which I'm going to talk to you about, we can actually get your passwords and literally pluck it like you're looking in the screenshot, pluck it from the screen and leverage it to look at all your data. What else can make my job easy or hard, depending on how you look at it? Data that hides. So we have data that hides in locations. You may take a picture and there will be EXIF information in it, which is coming up in a talk. And I don't want to steal from that, but that is just metadata about the photo. You may take a walk, and this is where people don't even think about it. You go on a walk or you're running to your school bus and it's tracking all your steps. It's tracking where you started that exercise. It is tracking the weather that day. It tracks who you share that information with. Think about if this fell into the wrong hands. People would know a lot of information about you. One of the best things about my job, and this is probably what makes it the hardest, it changes every single day. Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp, all of these chat applications, House Party, they change regularly. How the data is stored in them changes regularly, and I am lucky enough that I get to chase it. And that's how I like to look at things. I consider myself lucky that I am always learning. And I swear it just keeps me young and fresh and wanting to I seek knowledge. So if that's something that seems to excite you, you should do it. I love to be self-deprecating to an extent. So why people make my job easier? I just told you all this stuff that's left behind, but I'm equally guilty as most people who are listening to this are. That is a Facebook post that you see a screenshot there, and it has a date timestamp. It tells you I'm at Philadelphia International Airport, that I'm traveling to Stockholm. And not only does it have all that information, but it says it's the last trip of 2018. It makes leaving so much harder. I can't wait to get home and decorate with my crew. And then kiss our babies a ton for me. And I did blur out my husband's name there. But now you know I've left my children at home, where I live, or at least where I'm flying from, that it's Christmas time, where I'm traveling to. And then, of course, when I get there, I tag myself at Google. You can literally stalk someone through social media. We put so much information publicly on the internet that people don't even think about it. And I do it all the time. I am guilty, and it's very poor security if you think about it. So you really have to think about these things. Some people think, how did this person know where I was? Well, you probably posted a picture on Instagram of the food you were eating or the lake you were swimming in. So all of these things really come into play with a lot of investigations. Something else that makes my job easier is when someone posts like this publicly. Just because I wipe my iPhone or throw it in the trash doesn't mean this data goes away. When you put it out there, it is going to be there. Location is often king. There are so many things that know where you are on these devices. And I know Ladrina was talking about how your phone never forgets. It's almost as if your phones and tablets have a mind of their own and they cannot forget. They have the ultimate memory. They are like elephants, just watching and taking it all in. Things like weather, anything that predicts possibly traffic and things like that, all know your location. It's really, really crazy. Think about your smart home items. So I have Alexas, I have Google, I have a Nest, we have smart lights, all of these things, it knows the location. If I look it up, it says Heather's dining room, and it knows exactly where it is. Background information is always watching, listening, and waiting. And I know that sounds horrible, but it's true. If you have an Alexa, and I actually had to take her out of my office because anytime I mention it during a presentation, think about how many times you don't say the name to wake her, but you see that blue ring spinning on it. It's kind of frightening, right? When you think about children being in a home, but these could honestly be the best part of the crime scene. These could be the one thing that was listening and waiting in the background that has the truth. So while it's scary for privacy, it is amazing forensically. And I absolutely love it. And it makes me want to keep chasing things and doing my job. So now we have two things we have to talk about. How are we going to get the data? And then how are we going to analyze it? So getting the data. If you are doing mobile device forensics, this can be very, very expensive. I'm going to do a demo for you coming up, and I'm going to show you how to do this with iTunes. Now, iTunes is obviously free, and that is a recommended way because all of you can use it. If you want to try to extract your own iPhone, you can do that. If you wanted to try to extract your own Android, if you go to, and I'm not sure if we can type this in the chat or not, but FOR585.com/books, BOOKS. That will give you access to Practical Mobile Forensics 2nd edition that I had written, and it will walk you through how to do free backups and such of an Android device. Also in there, you will find Learning iOS Forensics, and that is something that you can also poke around, try things. The best way to learn is to try. So I really, really encourage you to do that. But for this lecture, we are going to focus on iTunes. In my everyday life, I do work for a software vendor, Celebrate, and I use Celebrate to get full file system extractions off the device, which means almost everything that's there. You won't get as much from a backup, especially if it's encrypted or not encrypted. So there are so many things out there. Just keep digging and give it a shot. So getting the data, do you have to be as cute as this little hacker puppy? No, you do not. But you really do need access to a Mac or a PC. And I set up this homework lab for you so that I have no idea what you have in your home. So I want it to work either way. And it's there for you, so you can give it a shot. So we're going to leverage iTunes. We're going to extract our data from an iPhone that we have the passcode on. The next thing we're going to do after that is analyze it. And this is the part that can get very, very difficult. How you analyze it will depend on how you captured the data. So the more you grabbed, the more you have access to, the better your analysis will be. But this is where people make assumptions that they read that Snapchat was secure, or they read that Telegram was secure, or Signal, and you think you're putting something out there that will not haunt you. Anything you put out on the internet or use your phone to do, you should assume that someone like me can get that information. So just keep that in mind. Nothing you do is fully safe. Chat applications are probably one of the greatest aspects of my everyday investigations. Chats and location. And they are not necessarily easy, but I'm going to challenge you in your lab that I'm giving you to do these things. So I have done the extraction. I'm going to have you do the analysis. And I want to walk you through this. So this is my plan. And this, I know this made Lee nervous, where I was like, I'm going live demo. We all know live demos don't work, but forensics doesn't always work. So I want to keep it as real as possible for you. So my goal is I'm going to acquire this iPhone. This is the iPhone you actually have the data from. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to load the backup into a free tool and show you how to do some simple analysis. I am not going to show you the answers to your homework because I want you to do it. And in the homework, I actually provide you with screenshots of the answers and walk you through the steps I had taken to get there. So do not panic if you've never done this. I want it to be fun. And if it fails, I apologize, but this is a reality on how things go. Okay, so I'm minimizing my screen. The first thing I have to do is I'm going to bring up iTunes. Now let me make sure. Lee, can you just confirm that you see my iTunes screen and my desktop?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thankfully.
Okay, so I have on here, and I just want to show you, this is an iPhone 6. It tells you the phone number, how much space is available, and you'll see by default, it wants to back up to iCloud. We don't want to do that. We want to control it. We are creating a backup. So I'm going to change this to this computer. Now, this is where you have options as a user or as the examiner. Right now, we're playing Forensic Examiner. You can choose to encrypt your local backup. If you encrypt your local backup, you will get more information. However, if you choose encrypt local backup, it's asking you for a password. And this one, I always use 5555 just to be safe, because then if I forget later, it doesn't hurt me, and I click set password. Now, if I click cancel, nothing happens. I do lots of backing up on this computer, so you're not going to see something that if you have never encrypted your local backup, you will get a warning saying, if you encrypt your local backup, sensitive information will be backed up. And if you look closely, it says passwords, health, HomeKit data will be backed up. Not only will that be backed up, you may get some wallet transactions. You're going to get all your deleted text messages. So lots of things. I do normally recommend encrypting the backup. The issue is for the homework, it would take you through too many steps to crack that backup. So that was beyond the scope of this. So all we're going to choose is backup now. And you'll see it saying it's backing it up. My phone looks normal. Everything is fine. This one is only 14 gigs, so it doesn't take as long. My iPhone, I think, is about 128 gigs, and it takes maybe 3 minutes to do a backup. It is very, very quick. So it's going to do its backup. And you can do this step if you choose to, but this has been done for you. So the iPhone backs up, all is good. You can say done and say, okay, I don't want to apply. I just want to close it. Now the next thing is to launch IBackupBot. The reason I'm choosing IBackupBot, and you may see errors pop up, and I wanted to do this on purpose live because this is totally normal. So what IBackupBot does is it goes out and it looks in the directory where backups should exist. And you can see here where it's saying this backup's encrypted. I can't do this. So that's why I didn't encrypt. So I'll just say, okay, I have a lot of backups. So it's hitting all my backups. Now what you are going to do, you're going to have a blank screen unless you have backups on your computer. If you have backups, it's automatically going to see those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this backup. And you're going to go to File, Open, and do not worry, this is documented thoroughly for you. And you are going to go out to your CyberCamp directory and you are going to point it to your backup file, which will then load and it will say H. Mahalik's iPhone. And you should see that you have information about it. When you look over on the right, you're going to see the phone number, the serial number, all kinds of things. Now, the only reason you see this information down here on the left is because my iPhone's connected. As soon as I disconnect, you can see that disappears. So if you have your iPhone connected, you could actually look at IBackupBot that way. And you'll notice IBackupBot just crashed. This is the thing with the free tools. Because I unplugged it, it was unhappy with me. But it takes a second to load, and it's going to go through again and try to scan, and it's unhappy because it found those encrypted ones, but it's happy at this point. Now, this is where your homework begins. I'm going to ask you key questions. I want to know when a contact was created. I want to know if you think the user had a dog and why. So this is where you have to think creatively. I want you to start doing forensics. Your analysis is going to exist primarily by clicking on these tabs. So I'm going to click on some where the answers are not. So let's say I go into messages. And as you click on these messages, you'll see this information. Now, if you get lost, you can always click across the top here and see contacts, calls, calendar, and other items, email, notes, Safari information. But what you can also do is you can always click back on the iPhone and it takes you back to that main screen. So whatever makes you the most comfortable, you can do. Now I want to show you another hint. I'm going to choose, I'll choose calendar because there's a whole bunch. So if you're looking specifically for a calendar entry and let's say pick up cat food, you could scroll down and look, but what you could also do is you could just type the word cat and it should take you to, oh, it's doing the columns. It doesn't like it. It sometimes works that way, but this one doesn't like it. Yeah, it still doesn't like it. So you're going to have to hunt for it, but don't worry, the questions I ask you are doable. Now, some people, you're going to be the go-getters, and that's fantastic. If you want to come over, you can actually browse the file system. So if you wanted to see what app data looks like, if you click on user app files, these are all of my third-party apps. You can see everything listed in here. You can see app group files, so maps, cloud, notes, news, weather, Instagram. Poke around with it, have fun with it. You can also leave IBackupBot. So if you find that you have a SQLite database and you want to poke around a little bit, or maybe you looked at the books, the for585.com/books. You're like, you know what, I want to try this. I want to try a query. I want to really branch out. Go for it. This is your test data to play with and to have. How I'm providing it to you. And this is going to come up in a second here on the notes, but I am giving you a CyberCamp lab. And you can click on these links. I had someone verify that they do work. This first one is where you're going to download the backup. It's a small file, but it is a zip file. So if you're on a Mac, all you have to do is double click the zip file and it will open. If you're on a PC, just right click and do extract, and you can extract or unzip that file. I recommend putting it into a directory called CyberCamp or something that will make sense to you so you always remember where it is. Step 2, you have to download the tool. So either PC or Mac, you do that. And then I warn you, when you load IBackupBot, it's going to give you some errors. It is definitely going to do that. You can see here, I saved my directory into CyberCamp. You want to click right on that primary directory. Don't go any deeper and say select folder. And then you have your data, and then you get to do some forensics. So the questions: on what date was a contact created, and what is the phone number for this contact? Does the user appear to have a dog? And you have to think a little bit outside the box on that one. When did the user last watch Dude Perfect on YouTube? This is a huge clue that my 7-year-old had this device. And then a bonus. Did the user try to look up anything relating to anti-forensics or attempt to delete or hide data? Now, anti-forensics, this is something we consider, did the user try to tamper with their device? Did they want to mask something to make sure we couldn't find it? So you want to look for traces of that. And then I don't want to spoil it for you, but I include screenshots on how to find everything. So I want it to be approachable. I really want you to have fun with it. And I just hoped that it would give you a chance to do actual forensics and try it. Try what I do every day and see what it looks like. See if it entices you to dive deeper into a possible career like this. Now, I wouldn't be a mom if I didn't warn you on all of these things here. Make sure you're smart with your smartphone. I want you to be smarter than a smartphone. When you're installing something, make sure you know what has access to your location, your microphone, and your camera, because that's the easiest way for bad things to usually happen. Everything you do on a phone can be recovered. Remember that. Do not trust any false claims by any of these vendors or application creators. Now, this third one here, a lot of people don't think about this. What are your usernames? Are they going to offend someone? Are they giving off a vibe that you wouldn't be proud of? And I know that joking is funny, but things like that may not be very professional. So think about it. Like, I know on Twitter, I'm extremely boring. I'm at Heather Mahalik. It's not very exciting. But I know my first AOL email address was SK Stargal. My dad's like, what the heck does that mean? I'm like, it's because I like a skateboard and it's a tattoo I want to get. And it's the year I graduated. He's like, change that email address, which is great advice. So think about things like this. Don't reuse your passwords over and over. Encrypt when you can. Protect yourself. If you create backups, encrypt them, protect them, lock them. And then I know the second to last bullet, no one likes it. Share your passwords with your parents. Honestly, it is better that people protect you from doing things that you may accidentally do and regret later on. So trust me on it. It is better. I deal with a lot of parents after the fact who need help getting into their kids' phones. So trust your parents if they ask you for a password. And the last one, don't talk to strangers. I have a lot of fake accounts that I create in the sake of creating test data. Not everybody has a good spirit behind it, so please protect yourself, be safe, and do mobile forensics because it is amazing. I love my job. I'm lucky enough that my job is my hobby, and I love the people I work with. I am really lucky that I am afforded the opportunity to work at SANS as well and share the word and learn from students where you're getting access to your homework if you choose to do it. And I really hope you do. FOR585.com/phone lab, all lowercase for that phone lab. So make sure you grab that. That is where you're going to get that entire PDF that has the link to the data, to the questions, to everything. My email address, and if you have questions, I want you to reach out. If you enjoyed the lab, if you struggle, reach out to me. let's treat this like we would in a classroom environment. If this were a live event, I would walk around the room and help you. So that's how to reach me, Mahalik at SANS.org. I'm on Twitter. And I also try to blog a lot. So if this enticed you, you can go out to smarterforensics.com. You can read my blog. You can look at previous presentations I've done. One that people really tend to like is called Making a Murderer, Health Edition. So that may be exciting to you. So just take a look, see what's going on out there. And actually, I will leave this final screen up for a moment. I believe it's shared with everyone, and I will answer any questions that may exist right now.
Okay, thank you, Heather. All right, so let's see about some of the questions. Okay, so what are some of the hardest things to recover from a device?
Ooh, secure chat apps, like legitimate secure chat applications. But these secure chat apps, they usually protect your texting, but not your attachments.
Okay. What would you do? I saw a few questions like this. What would you do if you got a damaged or destroyed phone?
Ooh, so these are fun. This sounds ridiculous, but try to acquire it through Bluetooth. If the screen is damaged, I replace the screen. But always try simple things. You can also back it up to iCloud and then get a test, or we call it a donor device, and log in as that user on the donor device and pull all their information to a fresh one.
Awesome. A question about the SD card you mentioned earlier on. Did it get digested at all?
It came back out. And yes, we were able to acquire it. And I have no idea where the one I threw across my office went. So body fluid does not harm the SD card.
Wonderful. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that one. All right. What do you do if the phone is locked?
Crack the lock if possible, or use a jailbreak or a root, which are alternative methods into bypassing security to get an extraction of the data. But you need, at that point, you're going to either need a Mac if it's an iPhone, or you're going to need some expensive equipment if it's an Android. For Android, it's a lot harder, and you do need to pay to get access to them. So that's why you should lock your phones.
Okay. What's the coolest thing that you've worked on?
Ooh. Osama Bin Laden's devices. Definitely Bin Laden, I would say.
That's awesome. Let's see. Do a couple more questions. There were a couple of people asked about TikTok, because you mentioned you used TikTok. So what's your opinion on using TikTok given the current climate and, you know, it's what we found out about what it was doing?
Okay, so here I have my 3 phones in front of me. These are the ones I use all the time. This is not my phone. And, oh, it's creepy. It has the camera up, so it's seeing me. This is the one I use TikTok on. I do not have TikTok on my own personal device. I know other people do, but I do not trust the security vulnerabilities of it, so I keep it just on a test device that this isn't really me. So just be careful with it.
Okay. Let's see.
I want to know how many people are going to do the homework. I think they really do the homework. And I see some other ones in here about IBackupBot. Does it only work for iPhones? It's iPhones and iPads. If you're looking at an Android, you can honestly just go through file by file. You don't really need a platform to do it. You could use Autopsy, which is free. And I think I have a blog on that.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, Heather, thank you very much for that. If you want to hang around and answer some of the questions in the chat, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I think a lot of these questions, like because we're getting quite a few duplicates, what I'm thinking about doing is taking all these questions once the session is over, kind of compiling them, deduplicating them, and then maybe providing some general answers to these questions as we go along. So if you don't get your question answered by anyone immediately here, don't worry so much. We will try and get these kind of tallied up and have something.
Well, there is another good question, Lee. Can I answer this one really quick?
Of course.
Someone wants to know, is it possible to back up anyone else's iPhone if they have a passcode? No. You need their password in order to create what's called a trust to your computer. So like if I took my husband's iPhone right now and plugged it into my computer, I need his passcode to establish that trust.
And then you've also got things with encrypted backups too, where people type in a password. What do you do in cases like that?
Crack them. I like to use, so you can use Hashcat, which is free, but I honestly prefer Elcomsoft Phone Breaker. It's one of my favorites. I've had great success with it, but you may be permanently stuck.